Alice, thank you so much for coming on. Absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. I was really excited when you asked me to join.
Absolute
Okay.
pleasure to have you on my end. But I want to jump straight into it with you here. When you got into music, did you start with the piano? Was that kind of your entry point into music?
I did, yeah. I think um well, I was always a singer too. I mean, like as early as like 2. There was like my parents would share recordings with me of like me singing. I was always drawn to that. But I think instrumentally it was piano first.
Okay.
Yeah. Started studying piano, kind of fell in love with it and started writing songs too, even as a kid, like on the piano and singing.
Was it something that your parents got you into initially and then you just took from there, or was it something that you showed interest in that they're like, okay, we gotta get her into playing the piano?
I think that they just saw my interest and saw that I was drawn to it. Um, they were always very supportive, like even into adulthood, and very encouraging of continuing my like musical pursuits. Um, I never got the message of like that's not a real job or that's not something worth going for. So I feel grateful for that. Yeah, they were always
Absolutely.
very, very nurturing of that part of me.
You really took to it in the beginning?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved piano. I mean, I definitely went through a phase where I think this happens to everybody maybe, where it was like a kind of plateaued and then or maybe I reached the point where I was like getting challenged in a new way and it was harder for me to get over that. Um I I stopped studying piano though around high school because I got really into marching band. Um, that was like very
Classic
much
trajectory. Classic.
yeah, classic trajectory. You know, I learned a lot from that experience, but it did kind of steer me off the path of like piano studies um, and then, but anytime I came back to it, it still, was there and I loved it. I just kind of took a break from studying piano and then as I got older was more into vocal studies. I was studying classical voice in college and kind of wasn't really until post college I got back like more deeply into my piano studies.
Oh wow.
But it was never something I fell out of love with. It was just something that I stepped away from for a bit.
Put on the back burner and came back to.
Yeah, and explored other musical parts of me.
What was the instrument that kind of drew you away from the piano? That you're like, oh, I like that. Let me get into that for a bit.
Well, like I said, it was like I was in the drum line, so it was more like the percussive world and the rigor of those rehearsals, like as an ensemble. So I got really, I never was playing like in the battery of the drum line, but I did get really into that world, and so that's what pulled me away. So not really a specific instrument, but that group performance.
The world.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
just sucked you right in.
yeah, yeah.
Um, was it kind of making your brain move in a different capacity in terms of like looking at and making music at the time?
It was actually. I always kind of credit that period of my life to being able to read rhythms quite well because though like of course you have to if you're a piano player if you're learning to read music you're learning to read rhythms but the rhythms that we were doing were much more they're faster and they were more complex and I got really good at reading reading rhythms on like notated rhythms on a page and um, I also got pretty good at playing with rhythm in my hands so I, I think that kind of comes through my playing now. um, I don't necessarily have crazy chops in running through modes and stuff, but I really love playing with the rhythmically, like what the piano can do. Yeah,
Very interesting.
so it did open my mind in a new way.
Now, you said you got back into it after college, but in college you were studying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you're studying to be a teacher, right?
I was not studying to be a teacher. I did become a teacher after college, but
Okay.
I was studying opera and classical voice, and I guess I kind of thought that was where I was going to go with the musical career. I also was studying French, so I had like I was really into the French language, and um, but musically, I thought I was going to remain in like a classical environment. I I got pretty good at singing like opera, but I it just never really when I would go to auditions after college, I was like, this is just kind of not what I want to do. I felt like it was something I was supposed to do post college. And so I stopped, I think I went to a few auditions after college, and I was like, this is not what I want to sing. Like it's a cool challenge, and I really admire people that, that do it. But it wasn't what, it wasn't how I expressed myself the best musically.
Right. What was it about opera that really drew you to that? What was it about that that genre?
Well, I think some of it is just that that's what was available. I mean, like mostly in an academic setting nowadays, you study classical music or you study jazz. And my school didn't. I was already pretty. I'd done choir all through high school, and I was in the choir in college, and really enjoyed singing that way in an ensemble. Like just a mass of voices. It's very powerful, and um, so what drew me partly was that's what I was able to study. That was what was offered. So, and the challenge, it's hard. It's a very different way of moving your vocal mechanisms. Now I don't know. I don't know if it would come back to me or not, but so I think some of the challenge of it drew me, and then just the fact that it was like classical or jazz. And jazz wasn't available to me in college for studying voice.
So it's just classical.
So it was like opera world it is.
Has that impacted the music that you've made since then? Are you coming at the music that you're making through the eyes of like a classical kind of sound in some form?
No, but I think I can never, I don't know if I can ever like undo some of the vocal training I had, which I don't think is a bad thing. I don't think. Like in terms of how you use your body in singing, like that's just sort of it's there. It can't make it leave my body. It's like a mechanism that goes into autopilot. So that's I feel lucky for that. You know, a lot of people are like, I don't know how to get better at this. Like they might have a really great voice and um, but don't know how to control it or how to support it. And that's just there. You know, if I'm in not the greatest voice, I can kind of still get through a gig because um, I got the old classical diaphragm chops just embedded in my body. So
Right. So I mean, if you were in jazz, it would be you'd be lost. But since you went the classical route because that was the one thing that was available, you're good to go, right?
well, I think it just kind of what you learn in studying in classical, like using your voice, that you apply it to any genre. So like I have sung jazz, and I use the same tools. It's just like the tools of how you support your voice, how you breathe, um, how you shape your vowels to express your sound.
Right. Does it take more time to find your voice or how to manipulate your voice the way that you want it to sound?
Yeah. Well, it's always changing because it's like an organic instrument. It's just always changing. My voice is so different than it was when I was 20, you know? So I think you're kind of you're learning new things about it as you age. But um So I don't know. I guess it's just a constant evolution of understanding it.
Right.
Like I find now sometimes I'm like, how it's not, I can't get the same sound as I used to, and I have to kind of relearn some things. But
Moving forward, after college is when you started getting into teaching, your teaching career.
yeah. hmm
What made you want to go down that path of being an educator?
Kind of similar answer in that it was it it was available and it was something that I knew I could do. Well, actually, when I first started teaching, I didn't necessarily know I could do. I met someone that kind of took a chance on me. Like it was the head of a very small school in Seattle, and I think she just liked me, and she was like, "I think you can teach." And so I started teaching elementary school. I was actually teaching French, and discovered that I liked it. I never thought I would like teaching really, but I liked it. I liked it was a different kind of creativity, um, and I was writing a lot of curriculum too. And from there, though, I started teaching music because I was watching the music teacher and I was like, I could do a better job than that. And then I was offered the job and I loved that, and so I stopped teaching French and was teaching classroom music and then started teaching private lessons one on one with students in Seattle. And, um, yeah, just really liked it. I liked some of the projects I did in the classroom and liked watching, being a part of someone else's discovery of music, like one on one.
What was it about French that made you want to pursue learning it and then flashing forward to teaching it?
I was really bad at it. I was so bad at it. I hadn't studied a language in high school. And I got to college and I had to take a language. And I started studying French and I sucked. And it was really frustrating. And for some reason that made me want to get good. And so I actually moved to France for a year,
Wow.
barely knowing how to say my name is Alice in French, and got good at it. So in language, I mean, music is a language, so there's like some connections there, and um, I like language a lot. Just the evolution of it, like the history of it, and the way it's this kind of abstract tool that we use to express ourselves and communicate with each other. But yeah, that's what made me want to study it, was just being bad at it. It was so frustrating that I was like, damn it, I will get good at this. And
So, I mean, teaching French and teaching music, it was comparable in some ways. Those intersected at certain points.
teaching the two subjects,
Yeah,
yeah, except I found that teaching music was way more fun. It was more
of
playful.
course.
It felt more playful.
Sure.
Yeah.
Less serious. Definitely.
Yeah.
Now and you said this was in Seattle,
hmm
but you're not from Seattle originally.
No, I'm not. I'm originally from Illinois, from the south suburbs of Chicago, and I moved to Seattle in 2000. I always forget. I think it was 2006 that I moved there.
We're gonna say 2006. We'll check that and we'll edit it out if need be.
Okay.
We're gonna fact check
Okay.
that. Don't worry. We got a whole
Fact
team
check.
to
Yeah,
to be looking
you'll
into
have
that.
to
So yeah,
fact check me on the timeline of my life events.
yeah. We'll check the
Oh,
books. We'll look into it.
okay.
But 2006 ish.
Yeah, 2006 ish. Moved there, and yeah, I was there for 10 years and started doing a lot of music, and yeah, it was
Did
fun.
you move there with the intent of wanting to pursue music further outside of an educational standpoint?
I knew that when I moved there, I wanted to pursue music, but I didn't really move. I moved there for a relationship. My ex-husband was getting his PhD at the time, and it's like, well, you're going to be there for a long time. And I fell in love with the city, so I was like, well, I guess I'll move. And but I was excited about the musical history of Seattle, and knew that I wanted to play music out and get into the music scene. So it
How did
wasn't the reason I moved, but I had
yeah.
that intent.
But it just sort of happened. It intersects kind of like where French and music intersect if you're teaching it, like down those avenues, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Now up to that point back in Chicago, were you in bands before moving to Seattle?
I had a band briefly in Minneapolis. I lived in Minneapolis after college for about a year.
There's traveling everywhere, just seeing the whole country.
I know sometimes I'm like, yeah, I guess I have lived a lot of places, but I feel like mostly I've only lived in Seattle and LA now. But I don't know. Yeah, I had a brief stint in Minneapolis and had a band there with a couple of friends. I had a duo in college too, um, with a friend.
And was that just keys and singing?
I just was singing actually. I wasn't even playing keys.
All right,
I'd
very
play
nice.
guitar and we would harmonize, mostly covers.
Covers are good. Everybody knows them. That's what's overlooked about the covers. People get upset with hearing covers, but you gotta well, at least I know the song. So you gotta look at
Yeah,
it that way.
yeah, right. Like who
So
wants to go to hear a wedding band playing all originals? You want to hear the covers.
that would actually just that's a strong move on the wedding band's part to just play
Yeah.
their
Yeah,
discography.
they're like, we're just gonna play this record we just put out, so
Right.
buckle up.
Yeah, we have some for sale. It's right by the wedding cake. So why don't you go ahead and yeah,
Yeah.
that's also the merch table. So come say hello.
Yeah.
So you moved to Seattle with not the exact intent to join a band, but you knew that there was something there that you wanted to get involved with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was into the whole. I was listening to a lot of sub pop bands at the time, and I was really excited that sub pop was there in Seattle, and there's all kinds of obviously Nirvana like musical roots there, and I didn't start playing music right away. I don't think I really knew how to get going, but I started looking on Craigslist, just looking for people that needed a player, and that was some of my earlier bands were just Craigslist finds. But that's how I got in. That's how I started. Because at the time, I don't think I was writing. I think I was kind of taking a break from writing solo stuff. Um, my mom had recently passed away, and I don't think that's like where I was. But so I didn't have like material to just go and try to play out. So I was like looking for people to play with. And
Sure. And
those
you
Craigslist
gotta
bands.
check Craigslist. That's yeah,
Yeah,
kids at home. If you're trying to start a band, just go
that's
on
right.
Craigslist.
Yeah, you'll have at least have some good stories.
Sure. Or you won't have any stories to tell because you'll be murdered. But you got
That's what I'm gonna say. Bring your mace.
yeah, you're playing you're gambling. Did any of those Craigslist kind of ads though were you surprised by what came from them like musically like oh, okay, this is a really good whatever post to click on to get involved with?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I laugh because oh, one of them was. I mean, I got to see some venues in town. That was, and the leader of the band was pretty like, I don't know, he was driven. He was gung ho. He had a long term vision. And it was hard for me to totally, totally see how he was a big talker. But I think what I got out of that was definitely just some performance experience. And it gave me some credibility so that the first band I really started playing with was not a Craigslist find. It was like a word of mouth, like and I had credibility because I had played in these other
You
Craigslist bands,
you
and
played
I
with
could
that
be like,
guy, that guy's
yeah,
infamous band that is super
yeah,
famous. Of course, of
yeah.
course.
I've played in some Craigslist bands.
Well-known
Um,
bands, well-known Craigslist bands within the county.
yeah,
It's always segmented by. I don't know who's using Craigslist anymore. I feel like that's dwindled within usership. But anyways, moving forward, you're gaining notoriety.
I feel you. Well, gaining experience so that I could say like I know what I'm doing. Like I
Right?
have
Absolute
experience, not
notoriety.
like
Everybody knew your name in the Seattle area up to that point.
everyone.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
You're really breaking through Craigslist.
This is so funny to talk about because I've kind of forgotten about that. And yeah, it was a real gamble. I mean, I was young too, and to imagine to think about like little Alice going to meet this total stranger. Ah,
To
good
jam,
story.
just to jam, hang out.
Yeah, yeah. And the extra funny part too is like, I don't even know if I want to tell you this, but I will tell you.
Thank you. These are the stories that need to be on this podcast. These are the best ones. Please.
I was playing like glockenspiel in that fucking band. Oops, I'm
Sick.
sorry, I said the F word. But
You could say whatever the heck you want, please. Go ahead.
okay, your team will bleep it out.
Yeah, well, no, we're actually gonna kind of boost it up just so it's louder on that end.
Oh yeah, get those with the high end really like yeah, EQ it just the
Right, right,
way.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's in editing. Not my job. That's not my department. So yeah.
Okay.
I'm not just doing this here by myself in my parents' house in my own room. That's not me. That's not the bed I sleep in. This is all professional stuff. Yeah. We made the studio look like it's a bedroom. It's just for ambiance. Looks
Yeah,
pretty good, right? Pretty believable.
looks great. Yeah, really, and then in front of you is a bunch of cameras
Right.
and a lighting team.
Who are actually surprisingly from Craigslist. However,
Yeah,
haven't been murdered yet. So I think it's a pretty good find.
get your team up, Craigslist.
That's how you do it. That's all PAs finally find jobs. Is just going on Craigslist. Just
Kids,
a trick
yeah,
of the trade. Craigslist. Yes, that's where you
there you
need to be.
go. That's
Not
where you can find it.
Instagram, none of the social media. Craigslist. That's how you network and meet people.
Now this was early 2000s. Instagram was not a thing.
Right, right.
Craigslist, it was MySpace.
Hmm.
MySpace was the only kind of social media thing happening.
Which
And
is yeah,
I don't even
yeah.
know if I had a cell phone, to be honest. I'm sure I had a cell phone, but it was probably like a brick phone, you know? I wasn't taking pictures with that thing. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
you were doing business, making calls to Craigslist people,
Yeah, exactly.
doing what a phone is used for, calling people from Craigslist.
Hmm.
I've been there. I gotta go back on Craigslist and see what's going on there. I haven't been on there for a while. I haven't looked for anything or any people to jam with. I got, you know what, talking about it now, I might just be going on it later on today
Take
just to
your
see what's
time.
there.
Take
Yeah.
your time. Mhm.
Maybe a free ironing board or something. Something really cool that you can only find on Craigslist.
Yeah.
Half a wheelbarrow that's broken, all the good stuff. Or even a partner to make music with.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's all there.
So that is really how you broke into the community around Seattle. The music community was through playing with different bands, initially with Craigslist, and then it became kind of word to mouth.
Yep. Yep. So the old that was the start, the Craigslist start, and then playing in the first like I said, the first major band was word of mouth, and through that band, I met a lot more people in the music scene because we were playing out quite a bit, and he had just put his record out on Hardly Art, which is actually a label that my band is on now. But he had put his record out on Hardly Art, and I met the people at that label, and met someone who's now I played with her in a band that a band I play in now called La Luz, but I met Marianne through this band, and yeah, a lot of other people, and that was definitely the start to kind of like creating roots for me in the music scene there.
Right. Was this was pretty early on within moving there? Was this still around 2006, 2007 ish that you were kind of putting your foot in the door?
It was probably a couple years after I had moved, like 2008 maybe.
And of course, we'll
Um,
we'll check that and we'll
we'll check
edit it
that.
in right there. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get into that right away because I think I probably was just kind of scared. But so it took me a little time. But yeah, a couple years after I moved.
Now, has fear always been a factor within making music?
I don't know. I think that in different phases of my life, there's been fear attached to putting myself out there musically. Um, but as I get older, I sort of see that as a sign to, I don't know, just go for it. It's like if you're afraid of it, then that means you probably should do it.
Meeting up with a
And
person from Craigslist. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, exactly. And using that as like a sign that you should try. I think that gets easier as you do more of it, the pushing through fear. But yeah, I mean, I still get scared sometimes if like going on stage, and maybe scared is the wrong word. Like I get excited, but it feels a little bit like fear, and it's scary to put yourself out there sometimes, like put out your music, and but kind of have to.
It's true. It's needed sometimes. You got to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
It's especially with art, because you're not hiding behind anything. It's what you want to put out, which is good though. That exposure.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, how else are you going to get through the fear? You're just going to remain in fear if you just kind of hide. So you just got to push through it.
Or put it on a T-shirt. You gonna mark that down. Yeah, we're
All
gonna
right.
print it on there. Yeah,
Make
that's
sure
where it's.
you credit me though.
I mean, I'll see you in
1%
court.
of the sales.
I'll see you in court about it. We'll be in litigation. You're in Seattle. You're making your way within the music scene. When do you join La Luz?
Yeah, I played in so many bands in Seattle, and I think like at one point I was playing like everybody. I mean, everybody in Seattle had like six bands. Um, so I was playing in a lot of bands for a period of time. But I don't think it was until I don't know what year. I can't do the math. But I had been in Seattle for probably close to 6 years before, or 7 years maybe, before I started playing in La Luz. So I was playing in other bands, and um, like I said, I knew Marianne through this earlier band that I was in was called the Pica Beats, and Marianne played in that band. And when she and Shayna were talking about starting La Luz, they reached out to me about playing keys. And at the time, I was actually putting out some solo stuff, and I just didn't feel like I even had the time. So I actually was like, no. Or I don't even know if I said no. I think I just kind of flaked on them. And wasn't and someone else was playing keys for a few months, and then they came back and asked me again. Like I feel really lucky that they asked me again because I loved the music. They shared like the demos that they had done like a couple songs. I was like, this is great. And then from there it was just like that band kind of took over my career because we were just all so invested in it, and it was like um yeah, we were just like a fast moving train together. We were all really excited about it and put so much into it. And I kind of hung my hat on solo stuff for a bit and did that for a long time with that band.
I mean, so you were there kind of from the beginning, almost.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Wow. Now, the first time that you guys jammed, did that kind of solidify that, like, oh, this is something, there's something here, yeah, and I got to be a part of this, or did you already know it from hearing those demos?
I think I knew hearing the demos because I really liked the music. Um, I knew Marianne, so I wasn't worried about how I would like jive with her. I knew Shayna more in just in passing. You know, I'd seen her around, but I met Shayna for I think we met for coffee and just like talked about me playing in the band, and then she and I met one on one and worked on some stuff. And um, I our first rehearsal though, I definitely was like, oh, this is a blast. It's really different to play with a group of women. I had never had just female players in a collaborative setting. So
Do you look at that time now as like, yeah, we're here today because of that like first
oh
encounter and first
yeah,
jamming?
yes, absolutely. Like I mean, I could I could go on about what that band means to me, and it would probably get
we
way too sappy.
we got
But
four
like, yeah.
hours so yeah, we gotta fill it up with something, please.
I definitely think that that band. I mean, in a sense, we all grew up together, and we were that was 10 years ago, um, and I don't know, just learned so much from that band. I have chosen family through that band. I've talked. Speaking of fear, you know, I've gained so many amazing professional experiences and musical tools that have given me the courage to pursue all kinds of different things in music. And absolutely, that was like a life changing moment. And I'm
We
so
get
grateful.
it. You're happy with it, okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sheesh. Yeah,
we
talk about
get it. You
sappy,
love a new
gosh.
bandmates.
um During that time in Seattle, was that the music scene that you were a part of like kind of close knit? Was there like certain places that you played constantly, or was it always a revolving door of like, oh, let's go here and let's go here, and even outside of Seattle?
Very close knit. Yeah. Yeah. Um, because like I said, everyone played in so many bands, so you'd see each other at shows all the time, or like there's all kinds of overlap. I feel like out there somewhere out there there's like a funny like uh Venn diagram or chart of like all the I'll Google it after this, but
Yeah, well,
so,
yeah, gonna edit it
or
in,
maybe we could get on that too.
get it over to
But
the
like
team.
so
Sure.
so much overlap and close knit for sure.
when
But
when when did it start to feel like, oh, we're finally we're moving here, or did it always feel like it was moving towards something even from that first initial jam session?
oh, with that band,
Yeah.
with La Luz,
Mhm.
it immediately was moving. It was moving from the beginning. It was like I don't know if it was just like our energy at the time, but something or I don't know. We were just that band immediately was like had a tour and had shows without even any recorded material and was like
You had, come on, I mean, you
we
had the
had momentum.
demos. You guys had the demos. Come
You're
on,
right.
that's not.
Well, I mean, but before they even had those demos, they were playing shows. So like without me. But yeah, there was like it just had momentum right away, and I think that along that combined with our excitement around the project really propelled it. Because like I said, I pretty quickly was like, well, I'm not gonna do I'm gonna not do solo stuff because this takes a lot of time, and I was excited to give my time to that project.
And was that early on that you knew that decision had to be made? Like, all right, I got to stop being in these other kind of projects and focus on this.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
right away.
Was there a point that you felt like you quote unquote made it, or the band quote unquote like made it? Was there like a defining time that you're like, okay, here it is, here's success within this?
I mean, at that stage when you start getting paid like like well, I don't know. I don't even want to like triple digits. You're pretty. You feel like you
Oh,
made it.
okay, all right. You don't need to brag over here.
Yeah. You
Shit.
know, I think we should be open about money talk. But no, I think I
Just
can remember.
supers, just loose numbers. There's a couple zeros in there.
Yeah.
Not gonna
Yeah.
lie.
Add a zero. I for me it was like touring. I always wanted to be a touring musician, and so for me personally, once I was touring, I was like, I've made it. I've reached a goal that I wanted. And I think for the band too, the band felt that way. Though they all had touring experience and I didn't on at the start of that band. So I can remember being the first time we were asked to join a major tour, which was with that band of Montreal. I think that kind of felt like we made it. I can remember popping champagne in the van and screaming and being pretty excited about that.
Now, how early on was the time duration between kind of getting together and being on that tour?
The tour with Of Montreal.
Yeah.
It was less than a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Crazy,
did
right?
that's pretty good time
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah.
And you said 10 years now that
Hmm.
you've been a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. 10 years. Yeah. We just
Wow.
had our 10-year anniversary and did sort of a special show and made special merch for it. And it's wild to think that that much time has passed.
Does it feel like 10 years when you look back in retrospect?
I mean, I think it's kind of moved pretty quickly, but it does. Like so much has happened in that time, and so much like personal life events for each of us, and um, a lot of growth, a lot of records. Yeah, it
A
does feel
lot
like
of
10.
good stuff only. Nothing else. Just only good stuff has happened within that 10-year bracket, right?
Only no
Only
traumatic
moving up.
events whatsoever.
Mm-mm, no. Just happiness. That's
Yep.
what you get when you're in La Luz. Little known fact there.
Indeed.
Uh has being a part of that band influenced and changed the way that you perceive and make music moving forward from 2012 or 2013?
Mm, I don't know if it necessarily in how I make music, but maybe perceive music. I think I started listening to a lot of different things, like music that I wasn't listening to at that time. Um, well, maybe that's not true. Like collaborating in that way certainly taught me a lot of things. So in that sense, it did affect how I make music. And I was playing a lot more keys when I started playing in that band. I played keys in other bands in Seattle, but with La Luz, I felt really um, pushed to kind of step it up in my playing. It's like you're the keyboard player. No one else is gonna no one's gonna tell you how to do it. So figure it out. And so yeah, had some new challenges there that have pushed me to learn more.
is that important to have within music to keep you creating new stuff and moving in different directions, not staying in the same place, doing the same thing?
Yeah, certainly is for me. I mean, and
No,
I
you're
think
speaking for all of musicians. It's not just a personal opinion. It's just over
I will speak for all musicians.
everyone who's been on this podcast.
You can
This is it.
contact me if you disagree, but yeah. Yeah, it definitely is for me. And I think for a band, for the health of a band, you have to be kind of evolving and growing and being challenged though is big. It gets boring if you're not getting challenged.
When do you yeah, yeah, that's true. When do you start to get bored within creating music? Is it when you're going trying to hash out a song, or is it like a song that has just you just don't have the energy to play anymore because you've heard it so many times, like on a tour or something like that? Like where does it kind of the energy seem to dwindle out a bit?
Yeah, probably the latter, what you just said. I think there have been times where I'm like, oh God, I don't want to play this song anymore. um, I don't know. I feel sort of stripped of ideas of how to like make it new for
Zhuzh it,
me.
yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes, if you've been playing, if you did a like a really long tour, and you've been playing every night, it's kind of like a blessing and a curse. Like you get so tight, and you could play the set without even thinking, which on one hand can kind of feel good because then you can be playful in other ways, but sometimes then that is where maybe it gets a little bit boring and you're not I don't know, as excited about it. So
Now
yeah.
does I'm trying to lighten this up because it just got super dark, Alice. Thanks so much for bringing down the tone of the show. Shit. It's like pulling teeth with you now. This is the low energy. This is what you're referring to right now. Just bringing it down. No, do those songs eventually come around though with on the same tour? Has it ever happened? Like, oh, I'm so tired of playing this song, and then it kind of gains new life, and you go, all right, we're back on track with this song.
I think so. I mean, I think you probably have to take a break for a little bit, but I can think of times where it was like collectively as a band, we're like, okay, let's try something new with this song. And then that kind of shifts that energy, and you're like, okay, I'm a little more. We made this little change, or yeah, played with the form or something, and then now it's maybe a little more exciting to play. But for some reason, there are also songs out there that never get old to me.
What is a song that's ever gotten old over this past decade?
Well, let's see. You put me on the spot. Now I have to
I
really
mean,
dig through
I
the
got to do
giant
it.
catalog.
I had to judge it up for myself. Okay, I do these interviews a lot. I gotta I gotta keep it fresh. I gotta come with new questions.
Um, I guess. Hmm. There are some instrumental songs that I don't get tired of that I think are really fun. But I do think that might partly be because our catalog's pretty big, and so we can kind of take breaks from a song and then go on a tour and play it the whole time. But I don't know. Sure, Spring is still kind of fun to play because people get excited. So it's like, and I can fuck with the solo and make it new if I want.
Yeah, awesome. I like that answer. Uh, what is the song that gets the biggest reaction from the crowd? Usually, is it Sure Spring or
Probably that or Call Me in the Day.
okay? Very interesting.
Yeah.
These are the nitty gritty questions that I like. That this is judging up for me. I go, okay, I can play with the format a bit. You're giving me room to move, Alice. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
When did you decide it was time to leave Seattle?
Well, we kind of decided as a group. We all had been there for individually like because we didn't move to Seattle together, but we all had been there for like a decade. And I think each of us was ready for a change. And um, somebody was like, let's move to LA. And I think half of us were down to move to LA and half of us didn't want to go, but we all knew that we wanted something new. So personally for me, I was like, well, okay, whatever. I'll move to LA. I'm ready for a move. I don't know where else to go. So if you guys are moving to Los Angeles, I'll move to Los Angeles.
You,
And I'm so glad that we did because I love LA.
who
Just
knew
so
that you'd
funny.
like it?
What?
I said, who knew that you'd like it? Who knew?
Honestly, I hated it when I moved here and I didn't want to be here and I was such a grouch about it. And yeah, who did know? I mean, it's very different from Seattle, and now I'm the only one that lives here. They all left.
You you moved together and then separately everybody vanished. Yeah.
Everybody split. And I'm
So
still,
the next move is back to Chicago, the suburbs, right?
oh God. Now you got dark. Now
Yeah.
we took a dark
That is very dark. Yeah. What made you stay after everybody else left?
well, I didn't want to go back to Seattle.
All right, so that's
And
that's checked off the list. Now, where
yeah,
where would be a secondary location? Do you think now?
now probably up by my sister near San Luis Obispo in Northern California.
Uh,
Shayna moved up north, so Shayna's up in like in Grass Valley. But yeah, I don't know. Like when they wanted to move, like Lena moved because she and her partner got a house in Florida. Her partner was in Florida. Shayna and her partner got a house up north, and I didn't, by then I didn't really want to move. I was like, I'm not moving. That was a lot of work to like haul all my stuff down here. Um, and I grew to love it. I love that I like, I have kind of a community here now. And but to answer your question, if I were to move, it would be more somewhere in near San Luis Obispo. It's a little quieter up there. Pace of life feels so slow. I love it. It's so pretty.
we get it. You're gonna move. Okay. Next question. The most recent album that you just put out that just came out in October, right?
Mhm.
October. Was that the kind of coming back from taking a break from your solo stuff?
Yeah. It
Wow.
was. Like
And
aside, I'd never released a full length record, and I just worked on material for like a year and made that a was like gave myself a deadline, and I just got to a point where I knew I wanted to put more of my solo stuff out again, and did it. I did it.
that was all made in LA, Bright and Blue.
Yeah, it was all recorded in LA. Yeah, most of it was written up in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I recorded with my friend Riley, who played drums actually on La Luz's most recent record. Met Riley through those sessions, and then just we became fast friends and recorded with him. It was a blast. I loved our collaboration, and it was exactly the right um, duo to record those songs with. It was great.
Did the album come out exactly the way that you planned it to, or was there some changes involved with the process throughout the course of recording it and releasing it?
Well, it came out later than I wanted to. It also like I had kind of hoped to put it out on a label. Um, our manager at the time was pitching it to a lot of labels and just didn't get picked up, and that's fine. It was kind of it was a lot of work, but it was a learning experience of how to like put out your own record. And I the self-releasing of that record did come out all the way I wanted. You know, once I realized this is I'm just going to be self-releasing this, and um, that all went the way I wanted it to go
That's
smoothly.
awesome. Okay, okay, oh, you weirdo, want to go smoothly. All right.
Yeah.
Did your location while recording it and writing it, most of it in Seattle, and then coming down to LA to kind of record and put it all together, did it feel like you're kind of bringing two different places in with this album?
Yeah. Mhm. You're so intuitive.
I try.
But that was intentional. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
good,
the
good.
writing of the songs up there was intentional too. Um, just had so many, obviously, so many um, experiences and roots there still, and the stories of in those songs are connected largely to Seattle. And but I played around with. I thought about recording it up there because I still had a lot of music community. You know, I thought about recording it with Johnny, who we've recorded with, well, Luz has recorded with, and but I was like, I really, well, LA is my home now. I want to make this record here. So yeah, it was kind of like the joining of two locations.
Had the inverse happened that you wrote it down here and recorded it up there, would it be a vastly different sounding project?
Probably, yeah. Um, I wonder if those songs. I mean, I think the songs probably would have been totally different if I had been writing them down here. Just because like the content of the songs is so connected to Seattle, I think that I could kind of access a lot of the feelings behind them writing them up there. So I don't know how they would have turned out if I had written them down here.
And
I, I might
you're planning to do it, right? You're planning to rewrite it down here and record it back
rewrite
up
the
there.
whole,
So
yeah.
yeah, that's a second album.
Yeah, is Bright and Blue 2.0.
Does the environment that you record and write in affect the music that you create?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I feel like I have to kind of get out of my day-to-day world to do to write. I mean, not always, but I get a lot done if I can just leave for a week, which I've done that a few times. Gone up to Seattle and just like holed up for a week. Not even in Seattle, it's like outside of Seattle, this little cabin, but
Put the address right here. Go ahead.
yeah. Um yeah, it's helpful for me to create self-imposed writers retreats to get some writing done and just can go inward more.
Did you approach this album kind of like La Luz approaches an album, or did you kind of stray away from what you usually do with that band and focus on what just different avenues to get stuff done with this album?
I mean, it's just so different that I think it was totally different approach. I mean, with La Luz in the past, a lot of those songs were like the skeleton structure of them would be written by Shayna, and she would bring them to the group, and then we would kind of flesh them out, play with different suggestions. We would each write our own part. Um, so, I mean, just the writing of my own stuff is just a completely different endeavor than in La Luz because it's all on me. And then recording, I don't know, I guess the recording structurally was fairly similar.
How did it feel being at the helm of this project? Was this kind of the being the kind of the rebirth of this idea? I don't know if that's the right word to use. How did that feel?
So I think that's a great word to use.
Okay.
Yeah, it was it felt like a big endeavor. It felt like I wasn't totally sure how I was gonna get it done, but I knew I was capable of it. So I think it helped to do what I said was like, take kind of a retreat and just kind of turn off my phone and just see what came out. And then I made a goal of like, I can't remember. I think I made a goal of like that first time I went up to write, I wrote, I was up there for like 10 days. So I made a goal of like 10 songs or something. And just kind of, I put it on the wall. Like I had these post-its and like I made, I just tried to like kind of sound so corny, but like visualize it. And
You
but
had
to
a
keep
whole
it
cork
step by
board.
step.
It was like trying to solve a crime scene. That was what you had thread
Honestly,
and
that's kind of what it looks like. Like it was like I had it mapped out, and it helped me to to make it come to being because it did feel like a big task. In the past, I'd always had like a group of collaborators to create an album, and now it was like, oh, I got to do this on my own. That seems like a lot. Yeah.
and you said the time duration of writing this and getting it recorded was around roughly a year or so.
Um. Yeah, I think I wrote. Yeah, something like that. I think within the year of writing all the material, I recorded it. Well, that first retreat kind of gave me about half the material, and then I wrote more, and then yeah, I mean, and like I think La Luz was really busy too, so it was all like maybe it was pandemic. Blame it on the pandemic,
Okay.
but yeah, yeah, it was with it. Yeah, within the year of writing it.
What does this album mean? If it has a meaning, like what would be the through line of it?
The through line is transformation, but I always say that it's also like loss. Like loss and love is definitely the through line. Kind of that they're two sides of the same coin. And um, you find love and loss and lose love. It is a very personal and kind of, it's got like a lot of darkness to it, but and lightness as well. But that is the through line. I mean, those songs are mostly about grief and loss in some form or another, not just death, but like change.
Transformation.
Yeah, exactly.
The suburbs of Chicago. Dark
Suburbs of
stuff.
Chicago to Los Angeles, baby.
What stuck out to you about the track Bright and Blue? What made you want to title the album after that?
Well, it's kind of an intentional choice with like lyrically that those lyrics pop up throughout the album, and it's kind of my in the record my like pointage of what the soul is. Like every time I'm saying bright and blue, I'm referring to your spirit or your soul. Um, and I knew I wanted to title it that because of the like that song is kind of like a lullaby to someone leaving their body. Oh my god, it's not funny. It makes me laugh because it's just like so
It's
serious.
not funny. It's
It's
not
don't
funny.
laugh at that.
Cut the
Um,
laughing. This isn't the time for giggles. Um,
I've never talked so much about the record that I'm like I like it. I like sharing like what it is about, but it is pretty serious. But
it
but
is serious business.
serious business. So no laughing
Cut the grinning. That's it.
matters.
Was it explicitly supposed to be a dark album?
Well, not it's not trying to be it's not trying to be dark, but it is trying to talk about um personal subjects like losing someone to death. But it is supposed to be more reflective of the love there
Right.
than just the darkness.
Focusing on other things because death reminds you of the relationship that you had with somebody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What is your favorite song off that album?
I think my favorite song is Character. Either Character or Moon and Shadow.
Very nice.
Which were, yeah. Those I didn't write up in Seattle. I actually wrote those in LA.
Okay, so it was a lie.
Oops,
Just been lied
busted.
to on my own podcast. Is very nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Alice, it's really been a pleasure having you on and chatting with you. But before I let you go, we got some promo to do. Uh,
Okay.
and starting with Law Loses music. Streaming everywhere, wherever you get your music, that's where you can find them. Great stuff. Go through the catalog. Great stuff there. And is it dot com, or what is the website? Do you know offhand?
I think it's like Loser Online.
Lu- Whatever it
But if you
is, it'll be linked below.
I think a better place to go would probably be like our Bandcamp page.
Mhm.
La
And
Luz
that's
Band Bandcamp. La Luz Band.
this will all be linked below. And Alice's album, Bright and Blue, out now. Um, it's on all streaming platforms, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. And uh, it's through the Bandcamp, right? That is the best place
For
to
my
go.
music?
Yes.
Yeah, Bandcamp or I mean you can find it on whatever streaming platform you use, but if you want to purchase it, you can go to Bandcamp.
Good deal. And that'll be linked
Got
below
some
as
mail
well.
coming. It's gonna be great.
And people can follow you on Instagram for shows and this sort of thing, right? That's the best place. That's where you keep it all updated.
Yep. Yeah, Instagram, my handle is Alice in the River.
I like that one. Also, La Luz Band on Instagram as well. That's the Instagram for the band. So be sure to go follow both of those accounts. And do we have anything else to promote, Alice, before we go here?
Um, I don't know. I think that's all. Thanks
Alice,
for having me. This is really a nice conversation.
it's been
I like
absolute
talking about Craigslist introductory into the music scene.
it's been an absolute pleasure, Alice. Thank you so much. I'm gonna stop recording this. I'll talk to you in a minute, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.